Welcome, everyone, tonight to Church Hurt and Healing. We're in week 4, and tonight we're exploring a question that has impacted countless people inside and outside of religious spaces. Have churches confused conviction with shame for generations? Once again, the question tonight up top is, have churches confused conviction with shame for generations? Many of us were taught that feeling bad was evidence that God was working on us. But what if what we were taught as conviction, the conviction of the Holy Spirit, what if that was actually shame? What if guilt, humiliation, fear, self-hatred, and worthlessness were never supposed to be spiritual growth tools? As I've said for the last 3 sessions that we had, tonight isn't about attacking faith. We're not attacking faith at all. It's about separating healing from harm. And if you're willing to drop in the chat, drop one word of what happens when you hear the word conviction. When you hear the word conviction, what comes to mind? When you hear the word conviction, what comes to mind? Resilience, consistency. All right, Tara's over on the positive side of it. Commitment. Here's some additional questions to get us started tonight. Gut feeling, says Miss Hugs. A gut feeling. Was conviction presented as loving correction or punishment in your faith experience? Was it presented as loving correction, or was it a form of punishment? Did you feel invited into growth, or did you feel forced into compliance? And here's a great question for those of you who are coming through the religious prism of your past. Were mistakes treated as opportunities for learning, or were your mistakes treated as evidence that you were broken? Let's talk tonight about what conviction actually does. Healthy conviction says you made a mistake. Shame says you are a mistake. Conviction addresses behavior, and we're talking about this through the lens of spiritual or religious conviction. That addresses behavior. Shame attacks your identity. Conviction creates awareness. Shame creates self-rejection. Conviction moves us towards healing. Shame moves us towards hiding. One produces transformation. The other produces secrecy. Many people left church not because they couldn't handle truth. Many left because truth was delivered without love. Question for the chat tonight, a small but mighty chat, which I'm happy about. I'd rather have two engaged people and quality people than have a room of spectators with their mouths open, breathing on me in this post C19 era. Have you ever been corrected in a way that helped you grow? Have you ever been corrected in a way that helped you grow? Tara says yes, often. What made it feel safe, Tara? And what did that look like? Tara says the correction was suggested, then I was given the opportunity to try again. That's so good. That's what makes correction healthy. Wonderful. Let's talk now about some signs that you were given shame instead of conviction. You may have been experiencing shame in your past if you constantly felt unworthy, if you believed that God was perpetually disappointed in you, if you feared making mistakes, if you hid parts of yourself, if you believed that your struggles made you less lovable, if you were taught that self-condemnation was humility. Okay, a lot of people were taught that self-condemnation was a form of humility. I don't even teach humility in this network. I do not consider myself a humble person. I'm not striving to be a humble person because a lot of the humility of my past was actually self-condemnation, me making myself smaller. Ms. Hug says we call it here in the South the nice nasty. Yeah, my father would often talk about nice nasty people. You also said I grew up in the South during my church years. I'm a professional at spotting positive manipulation. Yeah. I've often found though that the people who are trying to do positive manipulation, they can't sustain it long term, so you eventually see their negativity seep through. So if you are a person who constantly felt unworthy, you believe that God was perpetually disappointed in you, you feared making mistakes, you hid part of yourself, you believed your struggles made you less lovable, you chose humility as a form of self-condemnation, and you felt trapped instead of transformed, it could be that conviction may feel uncomfortable, but it should never convince you that you are worthless. And a lot of the unworthy language, some of you know, is built into the music of the church. You know, the songs remind us that we're nothing without God. We're nothing without Jesus. We're worthless unless we have the church or its influence. Yeah, one day soon we're going to have a whole conversation around religious paranoia. Were you hyper aware or were you paranoid? What messages did you receive growing up that made you feel fundamentally flawed? Were there any messages that you received growing up that made you feel fundamentally flawed? Miss Hug says the music, setup, and environment helps us to sustain and endure the matrix. KM Essentials Magic Care says that I'm a sinner when I haven't done anything. Yeah, this labeling of ourselves as sinners. Off the mark. Not living righteously. Now, with that message, I'm a sinner, and with this sustenance and endurance of the matrix, how many of those messages came from people rather than God? Did the energy called God as you believe it, did that tell you, KM, that you were a sinner? Or did that message come from a person or a group of people? Ms. Huck says, yes, I'm a sinner when I think highly of myself and put myself first. In parenthetical citation, toxic. Because you wore pants to church. Yeah, there are a lot of people who are not allowed to wear pants in church. KM says all of this came from people and the Bible, read by the people. Let's talk now about why shame became so popular in the first place. Shame is effective at producing compliance for a little while. People who feel ashamed often become easier to control. They become afraid to question. They become afraid to challenge. They become afraid to leave. And as I've been teaching for many months, they become afraid to trust themselves. That's what shame does. Shame has been used throughout history as a management tool. If I can make you ashamed of being a woman who wears pants, if I can make you ashamed of being a same gender loving person, if I can make you ashamed of pleasuring your body, then I can manage you and control you. But fear-based obedience is not the same as transformation. A transformed person grows because they understand their value. A shamed person obeys because they fear losing it. And it meaning they are afraid that they're going to lose their value. I'll read that one more time. This is a bing bing. A transformed person grows because they understand their value, how gifted and worthy and how valuable they are. A person motivated by shame is only obeying because they're afraid of losing their value to themselves or to the community. I always felt as a child that if I stepped out of line, I could be pushed out of the community. My family, my church group, my friend group, that they would no longer value me and they would no longer want me around if I did not obey what they said. And this went all the way through college years because I went to a Christian university where there was a lot of Christian nationalism and evangelical behavior. And so I was well into 21, 22 thinking that people were going to no longer find me to be valuable if I didn't do what my peers said. Ms. Hugg said, fear, shame, isolation, all characteristics of making sure a human doesn't know their power. And if people don't know their power individually and they don't know their power collectively, they're able to be in this slavery called capitalism. Here's one thing I know to be true. Love changes people more deeply than fear ever can. As a person who's lived both in fear and in love, my transformations have happened under love more deeply than fear. Here's a big question, and this is going to be for the people who've been hanging out in here for the last 30, 60, 90 days. They'll have an answer. What changed in your life, or what is changing in your life now that you believe that you are loved and lovable? What changed in your life when you began believing that you're loved and lovable? And for those of you who are new to the message of Love in Action Network, like, what is this loved and lovable thing? What might change if you truly believe that you are loved and lovable today? What would shift for you if you received the message of being loved and lovable into your heart space? What might change for you if you truly start believing today that you're loved and lovable? Ms. Hug says, when I discovered how amazing I am, the abuse dropped from my shoulders like a raindrop. Oh, yes. These religious bullies lose all of their power when you start loving yourself. They have to find someone who they believe to be weaker, or someone who's weaker in their mind to pick on. Y'all see it happen all the time with me on TikTok. People will come in trying to John 3:16 me, for God so loved the world, yada, yada, yada. I start telling them, if God loved the world so much, why is there so much homelessness? Why is there so much poverty? Why don't we have universal health care? And then they'll start telling me about the enemy and the devil. And I'm like, well, if the energy you all call God can kick the devil out of heaven, why can't he put him in a cage so that we can feed people and give them universal health care? If God is all powerful, why have we not healed and fixed the things that we see that are blatantly unjust and unfair and immoral in our society if God is all powerful? Ms. Hug says that when they began believing that they're loved and lovable, that their confidence reached the sky and they were hated for not reacting to the abuse. Oh, yeah. They can't stand me either to this day. My whole family doesn't really talk to me because I'm not going along with the mind control. I do what I want. It's not harmful to me or others. Tend your own garden. Thank you kindly. If what I'm doing and who I'm doing is not causing any harm to anyone, I will invite you to tend your own garden. What did we learn from Dr. Maya Angelou here? Be very leery when a naked person offers you a shirt. And I feel this way about religious people. Be very careful when a naked person offers you a shirt. Religious people have not convinced me in this life that they're living in the joy and the freedom and the abundance that they preach about. Be very careful when a naked person offers you a shirt. Christians and religious people have to prove to me that they're actually living in the freedom that they're trying to call me into. I don't see the fruit. Once again, this is for the John 3:16 people. For God so loved the world. Let's just stop right there. Because if God so loves the world, and love is an action verb, where is it? If God so loves the world, why don't we see it? And then they'll start telling you about the forces of evil and the devil and how he got kicked out and he was a musician and all this stuff. And I'm like, it's weird. Because do you believe in the power of good more than the power of bad? Or do you believe that they both have power and therefore you're unstable and unsteady? Be careful when a naked person offers you a shirt. Miss Hug says, my pastor hates me because I can spot the microaggressions and call it out. I've walked in churches and was completely ignored because I wouldn't take my piercings out. Are we hetero? Are we, not all of us on the planet. No, there's 9 billion people on the planet and we are not all hetero. I don't know about the question. I don't ascribe to labels. Labels are for cans. Almuddy, labels are for cans. You're asking me to label myself heterosexual or homosexual or pansexual. Labels are for cans. Labels are for closed-minded people. God made Adam and Eve, and then he blamed Eve for the sin of the world. This is why I teach that I wouldn't be a woman and ascribe to that Bible, because you are villainized from the beginning. And people like Mr. Muddy wants to put you in your place as he's trying to put me in my place. Okay? Also a very argumentative person, so I'm sure his family and friends just adore him. He doesn't even need to know you in order to tell you what to do. And love is not control. Love is not control. So when you come in here and you start saying things like, don't play with God, bro, trying to control me, I know you're not a person that's motivated by any sort of love, because love is not control. Love is not control. And people in the room can see in the words that that's a very controlling individual. Heaven help the people who have to share common space with that particular person. You'll know a controlling, manipulative person when you see them. Doesn't bother me. Send me a Cash App, and then maybe I'll listen to you. Maybe. All right. I'd like to leave you all tonight with this thought. Conviction says you can do better because you are valuable. Shame says you'll never be enough because you're defective. Once again, conviction says you can do better. You can improve your life and you can heal your life because you are inherently valuable. Shame says you'll never be enough because there's something wrong with you. You're defective. Conviction calls you forward. Shame tries to push you down. And y'all just saw that happen in the space in real time. A stranger on the internet seeking to use the tool of God and Adam and Eve to push me down. Conviction leads us to freedom. Shame tries to push us into hiding. If all you've ever known is shame, conviction can feel unfamiliar, because healthy correction is rooted in love. And love does not require humiliation to create transformation. One more time. Love does not require humiliation to create transformation. And yes, Miss Hugs, it's usually the people who preach love the most are telling me to not play with God who end up being the most psychologically abusive people on the planet. When you see crazy coming, cross the street. When you see crazy coming, cross the street. Adam and fucking Eve. Okay. And the talking snake. Okay. Okay. I watch a lot of nature documentaries and I had yet to see a talking snake. I watch a lot of National Geographic and I have yet to see a talking snake. One that would whisper all kinds of hetero things, you know, because the snake never whispered to the homos. The snake whispered to the heteros, right? The homosexuals. But you know, this is where we are. What's one belief about yourself that shame taught you that you're ready to release tonight? What's one belief about yourself that shame taught you you're ready to release tonight? What's one belief about yourself that shame taught you you're ready to release tonight? E is releasing the idea that she is powerless. Tara is releasing the idea that she herself and her work are never enough. That's a wonderful thing to surrender tonight. Miss Hugs is releasing the idea that it's not okay to be disabled. Yeah, how are we going to learn to love all of our parts? How are we going to learn to love all of our parts? Maybe learn to recognize the difference between correction and condemnation. Maybe release the voices that taught us we were unworthy. Maybe remember that growth does not require humiliation. And may we leave tonight knowing that we are loved, lovable, and worthy of healing. Amen.